super counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's important to, one of the most memorable conversations that I had with one of my friends, which was one of my best friends from college, Jelly.
Mm-hmm.
I remember being in the hospital and not being able to walk, and I was in a wheelchair, and I was so concerned and angry about the fact that I couldn't walk anymore, because I couldn't dance anymore, and I couldn't go on tour and do whatever I was doing. And he said, T, he said, I'm not worried about your physical. What I'm really worried about is your mental aspect. And at that time, it didn't make much sense to me. I'm just like, I can't move my freaking leg. What do you mean? Like mental, like we'll talk about that later. Like I can't move my foot right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I really appreciated that because it made so much sense later. And I appreciate his authenticity and being vulnerable, and at the same time just being real, because he saw something that I didn't see.
Yep.
So I think friends are definitely a big support. But people who are going to tell you the truth, not people who are going to sugarcoat things. You know, at the time I wasn't sure if I would be able to walk again, but you don't need somebody sitting there telling you that, you know, giving you false hope at the same time. So it was friends, it was family. I definitely am a big advocate as a healthcare professional for seeking professional help.
Mm-hmm.
I did go and I talked to a therapist, talked to many therapists. And it's something different about talking to a stranger who can give you a different perspective, who doesn't know you, and who can actually allow you to figure things out on your own. You don't need somebody to tell you how to be. But coming from a professional standpoint, they can help you maneuver through some of these things and teach you how to cope with things differently, and teach you how to figure out like what, you know, your feelings and what you're dealing with. And not only that, but it's important when talking to somebody to talk to someone who's not going to make you feel guilty and feel wrong for the way that you feel. And a lot of times, you know, I did feel guilty. I felt wrong. You know, Kubler-Ross and the whole stages of grief, and I went through the whole denial, the anger, the acceptance, the going back to anger, the going, you know, back and forth. But you need to talk to somebody who is not going to judge you, and who's going to be just real with you and be honest with you, and help you through these things, whether that be a professional, whether it be friends, whether it be family.
Absolutely. And you know, I'm a proponent, you know, because there is so much value in talking to somebody who's objective, who's an outsider. They're not going to kind of stroke your ego and say whatever it is that they think you want to hear. All right. It's the stuff that you need to hear. And when you know, what I found is when people get angry with you for some of the things that are said, it's because it struck a nerve. And it's in those moments to say, okay, well, why did it strike a nerve? You know, why did it make me angry that Jelly said, you know, let me take care of my mental, you know, because it struck a nerve. That was something that wasn't even on your radar.
And it was an opportunity for a complete different breakthrough. Right.
And that's breakdowns to breakthroughs, right? And even when you talk about Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, even thinking about her process, it's not linear. You know, so you have denial, you have anger, you have bargaining, depression, but none of that is linear, and it doesn't mean just because you pass through anger that you won't see that again. So I appreciate you even saying that. Like, you go back and forth through it. It's not just one thing and into the next and then you're done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, tell me, speaking of like the introspective process, what has that been like for you? So at what point did you say to yourself, you know what, Jelly was right, or you know what, my mom was right? Or when I think about you, when you reached out to me, for instance, there had to have been some sort of introspective process that led to you reaching out. So tell me a little bit about, well, then tell the people a little bit about what that's like for you.
Introspectively, I knew that I couldn't do it on my own. I was willing to be vulnerable enough and be humble enough and put my ego aside, as we discussed earlier, to realize that I needed help. And that it's okay to need help. And it's okay to seek help. That's what friends and family and professional resources such as yourself are here for. There are times when I realize, okay, I'm doing okay, I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
And there are times where, you know, PTSD kicks in, or I'm having flashbacks about things, and I'm realizing that, okay, T, you're not the same person right now. You're starting to, I'm a little off.
Mm-hmm.
Constantly trying to be mindful and cognizant of where I am and how I'm feeling, and what I'm feeling, and why I'm feeling what I'm feeling. And with that being said, it's just kind of like keeping yourself on the radar, and like I said, identifying and getting to learn yourself and your new normal all over again. So when certain things seem off and you're not at this balance, you are able to go out and talk to somebody and seek help, and that's okay. So I think introspectively, it was just a lot of self-analysis, like what's going on? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling today? There are times when I would, you know, like now the Grammys are about to come up, and there were times when people would be like, T, did you watch the Grammys? Did you see the Kendrick Lamar performance? And blah, blah. And I'm just like, nah, I don't want to watch it. Because it was a trigger, and it brought back those memories of when I used to be that. And and I was jealous, and I was angry for a very long time. I was really jealous of my friends that were still continuing to grow in the entertainment industry. And it took me a long time to actually like realize those things. But I think the fact that I'm able to accept it now and deal with it gives me that much more power over the situation.
Actually, do me a favor. Say more about that. What do you mean by that? Like having power over it?
So I refuse to allow this situation to get the best of me. I refuse. And I feel like in whatever circumstance we're going through in life, we have the ability to give power to something. Or we have the ability to take that power in our own hands and do something with it that'll be more beneficial to us.
You know, and I think I talk to clients about, you know, you can either let your emotions control you, or you can be in control of your emotions. And there's a huge distinction between, you know, some people tend to identify with their story, with their emotions, versus, okay, what can I do with this? Like, it was given to me for a reason. And once you get to that purpose, and again, it takes some people a while. Some people it takes a year or two, or some people it takes 20 years to figure out what that purpose is. But part of it is, now how can I gain that control back? Because we do tend to fall victim to our circumstances, our stories, and our emotions. Do you think your career in healthcare, your career as a nurse, helped in your introspective process, or would you say that didn't make a big difference? Do you think that would have already been there regardless of whether you were a nurse or not?
I think it definitely had a lot to do with part of my recovery. It's just so beautiful how things have come full circle, because I was at one moment that patient that was being wheeled in on a gurney, bleeding out with blood everywhere and not having a pulse, and they had to do CPR on me. And now I find power in the fact that it's amazing how God put me in a place where 2 years ago I accepted a job as an ER nurse, and now I'm the one helping other people who were in my same exact circumstance. So I think that's a perfect example of how I have actually taken control and gotten some power over the situation instead of allowing it to take control over me. I don't think that I would be the same nurse if I didn't go through what I went through.
How do you think it may have looked if you didn't go through that?
I mean, I often brag about it, and it's kind of like something not to brag about. But it is at the same time.
Look, you got it.
I don't care how much more experience you have as me as a nurse, or what your discipline may be in medicine. One thing that I bring to the table that other people may not be able to offer is I've been that patient. I understand what it means to be on the brink of death. I understand what it means when families are there and they're dealing with the uncertainties of one day, okay, my mom is doing okay, and the next day, we're not sure, or if and how great medicine can be. The frustrations, the up and down, the gray area, just compassion. My compassion is on a completely different level.
Mm-hmm.
So while other nurses or other people may turn their head or turn their ear away from things, I think I have a sixth sense, somewhat of a superpower, in which I can connect with patients, and my rapport with them is impeccable. But that only came from me dealing with what I dealt with and being in that circumstance. So, as crazy as it sounds, I'm grateful for what I went through.
I don't think that sounds crazy at all. I think it's a beautiful thing for you to even have that realization at this time, because so many people continue to curse God or to question life and say, why me, why me, why me? And they stay in that space and they stay stuck. And for you at this point in your life and your career to realize just how powerful it was for you to go through what you went through so that you can be there more effectively, more presently, more compassionately for your patients. I mean, what a gift.
I think it's definitely one of my superpowers.
Well, you are certainly a superhero to me, you are just your strength and resilience. And I know people sometimes say to themselves, like, if that happened to me, I don't know how I would get through it. I don't know where I would be. Did you ever find yourself saying that at any point?
Definitely. I get that all the time from other people. And in some aspects, it makes you feel good. But at the same time, I mean, it makes perfect sense. You never know how you're going to deal with something until you're in that situation.
Until you're in it, right.
And so I think it's also important for us not to be judgmental of other people's circumstances, because you really never understand what people are going through. And even as a nurse, they always teach us in school, you never tell your patients, oh, I get it, I understand, or I feel your pain. And even, with my past, I still try to avoid those things, because you really don't know what that person is going through.
Yeah.
You really have no idea. However, I can empathize.
Absolutely.
In a way that if I hadn't gone through what I've gone through would be completely different.
Yeah, you bring up such a great point, because it's not that you're sharing your story with everybody, and I'm wondering if there may be some people that you end up sharing your story with because you just feel that there's a need to, or you're compelled to do it. But you don't necessarily need to, for there to be kind of that energy and emotional exchange for you to just be present with them, and them to feel from you, he gets it, like he understands it.
Exactly. And I'm careful with who I share certain things with. But it is beautiful when you do have those moments. I mean, I have them all the time with my patients, and I tell them a little bit about me, and it gives them hope and it gives them inspiration. And I think it's really cool to see that and see how it works. But there are also times when I don't share my story with certain people. I went through a stage of, and sometimes I still go through in and out, a stage of guilt, because I don't want to just share my story with everybody and seem like I'm seeking attention, or I'm playing victim. Because I felt like after sharing it with some people, everybody doesn't take to it the same way, and that's okay. But I don't want to be looked at as a victim. I'm the victor in this situation, and I don't need any sympathy from anybody. I don't need people to feel sorry for me. If anything, I just want people to see my strength, and I hope that I can inspire them in a way in which they can continue to persevere in whatever it is that they are dealing with in that moment.
Yes. I'm just thinking.
Can I say something else about victimization?
Absolutely. That's where I was going to go. Yeah, please. Yes, please.
This was one of the hardest things for me to do as well in my circumstance, and it was being able to see my own contribution to my circumstance, being accountable and being responsible. And I remember one time talking to my mom, and she said, "Terrance, this is not, you had something to do with this, right?" And she said, "This is not all so-and-so's fault who stabbed you." And I'm sitting here thinking, like, as my mother, how could you say that?
Like, how you going?
Right. And then there was a moment where I actually stepped back and